episode 1, Jeff. 1-on-1.
One on one.
with
I'm
David
excited.
Noel. Yeah.
One on one with an audience of millions.
Millions?
Millions.
Oh, yeah. You speaking that into existence. I like that.
Look, it's already here. Anything, whenever, I think it was out of the book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he said, begin with the end in mind. And I think within that chapter, he was speaking about how there's always 2 creations. There's the first creation in your mind, and then there's the second creation in reality. So you create it in your mind first. It already exists in that realm. And what's next, the execution for it to exist in the second realm, which is the physical world. And so it already exists.
Yeah.
Millions are already watching.
Yeah, I like that. You...
It just came in hot.
That's manifestation right there. I'm gonna receive that. So right now we're in Houston. This is episode 1. We're just having a conversation, a discussion, just a little bit of background about our history. Obviously, we're the Noel brothers. Grew up together, born and raised in Miami, Florida.
305.
305 to the day we die. You know, we both represent Haiti. Our parents are from Haiti. We have a podcast with Maki, our sister, called On Air with the Noels. I think mainly I want to just have a one-on-one, really in-depth discussion with you to really understand just what drives you. What is your passion? What is your purpose? What do you move towards in life? And I know that you have so many different things that you're working on, whether it's Barbershop Speaks, whether it's like being a communicator, whether it's being a professor at Florida Memorial University. You have so many different things that's going on. I'm curious, let's start with, when did you realize what your passion was? Like how young were you? What was the catalyst for you to get onto the path that you're on right now?
Wow, that's a very loaded question because there's a lot of different parts of me, similar to how there's a lot of different parts of anyone. And all the different parts make up who I am. And all of those parts of who I am were developed over time in different realms and different avenues. So the entrepreneurial side of me, I mean, that was embedded in me since birth. Seeing my dad and mom, I was in my mom's stomach when mom and dad had their own restaurant. And so, that's insane. So I was literally, while I was inside of her, I was getting the entrepreneurial experience so I could put it on my resume.
You're literally born to be an entrepreneur.
Born to be an entrepreneur, right? So I could put that on my resume.
Yeah.
I could say 29 years of experience.
I like that.
But there's a lot of different versions. But to answer your question directly, whenever I think back to when was the specific time where I got that spark, I always think back to a time in, I think it was 2013. I was watching a video called "What Does It Mean to Be Human?" Okay. And that's a very fascinating question because we know what it takes for something to be a triangle, what it takes to be a square. We know what something takes in order to be a rectangle. We know those rules, we know those parameters, but we never take time to really think about what it means to be a human. How do you differentiate a human between an animal, right? And I was watching that video and I was like, this is fascinating. And one of the points as to what it means to be human is that we have intrinsic worth and intrinsic value. And that's what separates us from anything else. And that idea of intrinsic worth and intrinsic value really shook me to my core because I was thinking, you're telling me that I was born valuable, I was born worthy, I was born purposeful, and I didn't have to, my worth and my value is not based off of how much money I make, who I know, what type of car I drive, what zip code I was born into. that I was already born with this value. And that was one of the most inspirational, encouraging, and most importantly, empowering things that I ever learned about myself. Because I'm thinking, if I'm already valuable, if it's already inside of me, then the only thing left to do is to take that value and bring it to the outside world. And that was definitely an inflection point for me. And that's a big piece of why I do what I do, is because I was never someone who suffered or struggled with self-confidence problems. Like, of course, I have my insecurities, mostly because of my eczema.
That's another story. Eczema, allergies.
That's a completely different story.
You fighting for your life out here.
But I never really had, self-confidence issues in terms of feeling like I was worth less. But, knowing that there's a value within me that can't be erased, nor can it be measured, is something that's deeply powerful.
Yeah. No, I really love that. I really love that. And so you watch this YouTube video, What Does It Mean to Be Human? And it sparks this awakening in yourself of your own self-worth.
Correct.
And so with that, what was the first action that you took after you had this enlightening?
I think I started reading books.
Okay.
I started reading more books.
Okay.
Because before that time, the only book that I would read is the Bible. And honestly, the concept of intrinsic worth and intrinsic value is it's a deeply spiritual one, in that the reason we have intrinsic worth and intrinsic value is because we're made in the image of God. And the idea of God being everlasting, eternal, immeasurable, and all of those things, and we have that same image and we have that same likeness, that we have the reflection of God in us, we have a vestige of God in us. That's part of that is what makes us immeasurably worthy, because God is immeasurably valuable and he put himself on us, right? And so back to the idea of, back to when it really dawned on me and it hit me, one of the first things I did was started reading more. I remember one of the first books I read was by Les Brown. I can't remember the title right now.
The Great Les Brown.
The Great Les
He
Brown.
said, if you could.
Right? He said,
if you can look up, you can get up.
He said, if life knocks you down, try to land on your back.
Yep.
Because if you can look up,
you can
get up.
That's right.
And, watching his video saying, you gotta be hungry. Like, I was like, yo, I'm hungry. Like, it made, like, it, and trust me, since I got that revelation of who I am, and, I developed a hunger that has become insatiable. I'm constantly hungry, and I'm also constantly eating, and I'm feeding that hunger by taking action. I'm feeding that hunger by educating myself, by helping others, by loving others, by pouring into others. And this type of hunger is not the hunger in terms of pain, because when you're hungry, it's painful, but it's more so of a hunger of purpose, right? And, I started reading more. I started to watch more videos. People like Eric Thomas, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful, right? And just started putting myself in a position in order for me to live a life that's meaningful.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you said there that I want to draw parallels to. So you talked about starting off by reading the Bible and gaining your perspective on life from there. You talked about loving yourself and loving others. And I want to draw parallels to our father, who was a minister. And so like his purpose and his passion was to preach ministry. And so I feel like that was our foundation. Like that's where we really learned how to like love thy neighbor and also love thyself, love education, love self-knowledge, always growing, always improving. So I want to translate that into a significant experience that you've, are still involved in, which is public speaking. And so the parallel to that is like dad, we would see him every single Sunday. He'd be on the podium and he'd be preaching from his heart, like ordained by God of something that he believes so deeply in that he wants to make sure everyone understands and knows this message that he feels so convicted about. So I want to translate that to understanding, you talked about purpose, worth, and value.
Yeah.
Like when you go up there and you're speaking as a public speaker, you're talking to young people, you're talking to all these people, like what kind of message are you trying to imbue? That's word of the day.
Word of the day.
What message are you trying to imbue into, whether it's the young people or the working professionals, whoever, like what message are you trying to give to them?
Yeah. I mean, that's another loaded question. I mean, so you mentioned dad in the beginning and how he was a minister, an evangelist turned pastor. And, growing up, I never really thought about it as public speaking. Even when I became a public speaker, it never really dawned on me that I would witness my father be a public speaker basically my entire life. It's similar to how I'd even realized until about 4 or 5 years into Barbershop Speaks, which I know we'll speak about, that I was literally raised inside a barbershop because Daddy was a barber. And I would spend many, many Saturdays inside the shop just hearing people talk, hearing grown men have conversations. So there's so many parts of his life that was poured into me that I saw that he didn't really say, Jeff, I want you to go out and host conversations at barbershops. He never really said, Jeff, I want you to go out and be a speaker. But because I saw him do that, I think internally I was like, I can do that too. And now here I am doing it. And I think that's so, so powerful. There's a quote that I love that says, more is caught than is taught. Like as a teacher or mentor or leader is walking, you're learning more from what they drop, what they leave behind, whether intentionally or unintentionally, than what they say with their actual mouth. And I think in the case of dad, like definitely a lot more was caught than is taught, because so many things I picked up from him that I'm thinking it's new. I'm thinking it's original. Like even us recording videos here, like we have videos of him in the early 1990s starting a vlog. Like he had a vlog.
He was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Like he had a vlog in the early 1990s. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
So when I started creating these videos online where I'll put a camera up and talk at the camera, I'm sitting there thinking I'm original, but this man's been doing it back before Netflix existed, back before YouTube was even a thought, back before it was even conceivable that someone can put up a camera and be like a one-man show, if you will. Like it's just really insane. And so his imprint on my life is incredible. Like if you were to if forensics were to come into my life and they were to look at all the fingerprints on me, like they would just see all of Dad's fingerprints all over me.
Yeah.
Because he really impacted me in ways that I know and I can articulate, but he impacted me in so many more ways than I don't even know where to begin if I were to attempt to articulate it. And so for that, I'm extremely grateful. So to your question, what message do I want people to know? I mean, honestly, that's the message, is intrinsic worth and intrinsic value. Like I'll keep it a stack. Like everything that I speak about, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it's on leadership, whether it's on public speaking or social intelligence, whatever the case is, like I'm always bringing in the idea of purpose and internal worthiness to those conversations. Like, I'll be honest, everything that I speak about, like if I put a title, effective leadership for tomorrow, better public speaking, how to grow a business, like all of that is just a guise. All of that is just dressing, and the real meat is for me to let you know that you're worthy. Like, that's what I care about the most.
Yeah.
Like, if you take everything I say and become an effective public speaker, but you don't know that you are immeasurably worthy, then you might be helping others, and bravo to you, but internally you could be suffering.
Yeah.
You could feel worthless. You could still feel a cloud of shame over you. And so that's why I do what I do, because I want people to have that same revelation that I had. You know, they typically say whatever inspires you and give you passion is typically related to your purpose. And that's what inspired me, and that's what gave me purpose.
Yeah.
And there's a revelation. I don't even really speak about this that much, but there's a revelation that I feel like I received from God, like even when I was in high school, that is really sticks with me to this day. That part of why I was created is to plant seeds. Like, we all know about how one person plants seeds, another person water. The obviously there has to be good soil, and when the plant is grown and it produces fruit, there's a harvester that comes in and harvests. And part of my main role, and it could be for a season, this season I'm in, or it could be for my life, but one thing that I'm very clear and crystal clear on is that part of my mission right now is to plant seeds. I know that for sure. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so the seeds that I plant, I'm really, I'm hoping and I'm praying as I continue to plant seeds that it falls into good soil, and that people feel inspired enough for them to either water it themselves or put themselves in communities where it can be watered, and one day it'll grow.
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy that I have that revelation and that I'm crystal clear on what my mission is right now. And that's why I have that same message. And it was actually you who you recognized when I first started making videos that that was the central theme of everything I said. And I remember you said, wouldn't it be cool if at the end of every video you say your life has purpose, worth, and value?
I said that?
You said that. Yeah. And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I kind of do say something to that effect all the time. And you're like, yeah, if you just say those things at the end of every video, like, it reinforces what your overall message is. Right. And literally since then, at the end of every single video and in almost every speech I give, I say your life has purpose, your life has worth, and your life has value, and never let anyone tell you it doesn't. Yeah. And so I'm very crystal clear on that message.
Yeah, that message is crystal clear. Yeah. And speaking of planting seeds, I think when people see you on stage as a public speaker, they see this great oak tree. But they might have necessarily haven't seen like when the seed was first planted and it's sprouting. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times people see someone who's speaking on the stage and they might get intimidated and think, oh, I can't be that person. I can't do that. And so I'm curious to understand and know, like, we see you being so confident and talking on the stage. Like, I know you've written a couple of books on communication and public speaking. Yeah. And public speaking is one of those greatest fears that people have, even more than death. Yeah. So, like, do you still get nervous? Like, do you have to fight through the nerves to be up there and be bold and courageous? Like, what are the different factors of speaking in public, and how have you overcame them over time?
Man, I am 100% still nervous whenever I get on stage. I 100% get nervous before I go on stage. A lot. Not every time. Don't get me wrong. You feel me? Like, I know I'm in my bag, though. Let's keep it a stack. Right. I know whenever I touch that stage, I'm bringing heat. Exactly. I know that for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yep. So my nervousness is rarely rooted in will I perform, because I know every single time I touch that microphone, there will be heat. But the nervousness that I feel is the weight of the responsibility of the task that I have. The weight of the responsibility. I'm like, yo, I really have to steward this well. I really have to steward this well because I know I'm very effective with my words. I know I am a great public speaker. I know that I'm very impactful when I speak. I know I'm very influential. And all of those words are neutral words. Being influential, being impactful, being inspirational, all of that's neutral. You could inspire someone to do bad. You could impact someone and have them go in the wrong direction, right? And so I have to be very mindful that if I do not deliver the right message, then I could inspire someone to go on a path that's not their purpose. And I think that's what I'm scared of. That's what I'm afraid of. Now, that's not what I've always been afraid of. Like, I used to be terrified of making mistakes because, as you know, another one of my insecurities have always been my grammar. Like, I do not have the best grammar in the world. Hey, before ChatGPT, you were my ChatGPT.
I was just the grammar police all the time.
Literally, and I know you remember this, I would literally copy and paste messages or send you emails, say, hey, David, I'm about to send this. Can you make sure the grammar is correct? Can you make sure, can you make sure that the grammar, I wrote this well? And I used to be very, very afraid of that. And, to this day, it's sometimes like, man, if I don't say this sentence correctly, like, it'll mess up the whole bar and I'm about to drop. And I definitely had that fear a lot more than I have now. Also, one thing that I've always been afraid of is being called a charlatan. And I'm like, man, like, whenever I go on stage, I really want to make sure I know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to be credibly accused of speaking on something I know nothing about. Like, people could accuse people all day,
right,
but there's a difference between being accused and being credibly accused.
Right.
I don't want to be credibly accused of speaking on something that I don't know nothing about. And that's definitely a fear I had. And the way that I work through a lot of the fears is mostly through practice, honestly. And it's not a sexy answer. It's not an Instagrammable answer. It's not a powerful quote that you need to practice to overcome fear. But that's what the truth is. That's exactly what the truth is you need to practice. You need to do it more. You need to go out there. You need to do it wrong. You need to do it badly. You need to mess up. You need to stumble. You need to embarrass yourself. And then you got to keep doing that until you start to inspire, until you start to empower, until you start to make an impact, until you start to drive your message home effectively. And that's what I had to do. And I did that in Toastmasters. I'm a big proponent of Toastmasters. For those of you who don't know, Toastmasters is an international organization that helps people with public speaking. And I guarantee any of your millions of listeners who's listening to this right now, if they just look up Toastmasters near me, I guarantee you they will find one. And especially what happened post-pandemic, a lot of Toastmaster clubs moved online. And so they are still online. So even if you can't find one within your immediate area, if you don't have a car, if the bus doesn't go that way, if whatever the case is, if you have an internet connection, you can join the Toastmasters club. And Toastmasters was very helpful for me because it gave me the chance to speak in front of strangers, and they eventually became friends over time, but it gave me the chance to speak in front of strangers consistently. So we would meet every Wednesday. Every time in my mind I say Wednesday. For whatever reason, whenever I'm speaking, I'm spelling the words in my mind too.
Wednesday.
So I want to say
that's a tough word.
Wednesday. But we would meet every Wednesday around, I believe, at 6:30 p.m. We would actually meet at inside a conference room in Siemens. The company, I forgot what is it they do, but we would be inside that company. They have really tight security, and it would be me and a couple people that I don't know from a can of paint. And every single Toastmasters, not event but meeting, every Toastmasters meeting, everyone speaks, and everyone speaks either by giving a speech, evaluating a speech, or having to give what's called a table topic. And a table topic is when they go around the room and they ask you impromptu a question, and you have to answer that question spontaneously. And you would have to literally stand up and talk your talk. And you have about a minute to 2 minutes to say something. So every single Wednesday, I was either giving a speech, evaluating a speech, or definitely giving a table topic. But what I loved to do, what I became the master of at my club, which is called Electric Toasters. Shout out to Electric Toasters in Orlando.
Not the shout out.
I became really good at evaluating speeches.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily my speeches that made people love me. It was the fact that I was able to break down other people's speeches. I was able to identify what they could have done better, and the things that they did wrong, how they could improve, etc. And that's what I really enjoyed doing, because evaluating a speech was both prepared and impromptu, in that while the person is speaking, you're jotting down notes on what you're going to say when you go on stage and talk about their speech in front of them and in front of everybody else. So you're jotting down notes, so that's the preparation part. But it's impromptu in that you don't know what they're going to say before the speech starts. So you walk into Toastmasters Club that day not knowing what exact words you're going to say. So that's what I loved about evaluating. As opposed to speaking, I had time to prepare it in advance. And so Toastmasters really helped me a lot with overcoming fear. And that's what I use to overcome that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think in what you said, you provided very actionable tips for people who are either interested in public speaking, or they're like, oh, this is something that I can never do. But now you're letting them realize, hey, this is something that you're going to do in almost every aspect of your life. Like, you're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to communicate. And you're not going to learn how to communicate overnight. Like, you have to practice. You have to fail. You have to put in the reps in order to perform when you're on stage. And so let's move into Barbershop Speaks, because that seems like the culmination of your values, what you care about, what your strengths are in being in front of people and building a community and having, very relevant conversations that we just aren't having anymore. Like, you're creating a forum for us to have intelligent discussions and debates in barbershops. And so can you talk about the genesis of Barbershop Speaks, and then what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah. So Barbershop Speaks is my baby. This past year in 2023. So for those of you who are listening to this in 2040 and 2050, this podcast was recorded in 2023 on August 8th. And so I started it 7 years ago, and it was our 7th birthday last month. And one of my best friends, Brandon, he texted me. He said, "Yo, Jeff, Barbershop Speaks is 7 years old. Keep feeding that baby."
Shout out to Brandon.
Shout out to Brandon. He is hilarious. And I don't know why.
He said, keep feeding that baby.
Don't let it starve. Don't let it starve. And look, I am so... We could have a podcast episode on how grateful I am for Brandon in my life. But when he said that, it really impacted me. For whatever reason, it's the little things that really impacted me. Like, I'm sure he probably thought about it, texted, meant to be funny, but also was like serious at the same time. But it was really impactful because it is a baby that it grew pretty fast, in that we received, let's call it, national attention within our first year, and that we were featured on NPR.
Well, before we go into that, talk to us about what Barbershop Speaks is.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. And so Barbershop Speaks is an organization I created in 2016 to engage in intelligent discussions inside barbershops and beauty salons. And the origin is, I lived in Orlando, as I mentioned, and I decided that I was going to move back to Miami, and given the entrepreneur that I am, I was like, I want to create something when I come back. But also, I wanted to be a part of a community where I'm meeting new people and like-minded individuals. And I just couldn't think of what to create and what to do. And I have the mentality of supporting other people. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm sure that there's a million other networking events I could have went to consistently, but I still had the entrepreneurial spirit of saying I want to create something. And I remember I was thinking when I moved back to Miami, I'll probably go to a local Starbucks and put up a sign that says, "Let's have intelligent conversations." And I was like, that would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be kind of weird. That's low key weird. Like I'll be that guy, I'll get roasted on Twitter. And so I was like, all right, that wouldn't be it. And then one day I was getting a haircut inside a barbershop, and there was this big argument, and it's a stupid argument because anyone who looks back on it at this year and 30 years from now, they'll be like, why were people arguing this? But they're arguing who's better, LeBron or Stephen Curry. And I'm like,
let's talk about it.
I'm like, wait a minute,
Let's talk about it.
I was getting my cut, and I was about to tell the barber to just slow down, let me stand up, and just end all arguments right here.
LeBron versus Steph?
Yeah,
not even LeBron versus Jordan.
Yeah, that was a serious conversation they were having, and I was shocked. I was befuddled. I was flabbergasted. I was taken aback that was a conversation. LeBron is clearly the greatest basketball player to ever breathe.
Okay, talk about it.
And
hold on. Let's deep dive into that. What are the stats?
We don't have to deep dive right now.
Not yet?
We could deep dive later.
Okay.
But I was like, they're wasting their energy and their breath having that argument. But what would happen if we have conversations that actually matter? What would happen if we have conversations that actually impact the way people live?
Okay.
What if we had dialogues that actually transform how we view ourselves and how we view the world, and that can make a measurable impact on our lives? And I was like, Barbershop Speaks. And the name hit me right there in that chair. The green eggs and ham. Right there in that chair.
Dr. Seuss looking boy.
Right there in that chair. That's when I started to care. And I was like, I want life to be more fair.
Bars. So I love that. So like you're in the barbershop and all of it makes sense. You're in there and it's this community where you have a melting pot of generations. So you have,
correct.
You might have the father figure who brings his son, and then he comes into this community, and there's like older, wise kings in the neighborhood, and they're having conversations about sports, about religion, about relationships, about finance, about all these different things. And a lot of times we sort of take that for granted and we have trivial conversations. But what you're saying is you've created this this mechanism where like you're able to provide a structured way of having like really important conversations that impact our community.
Yeah, exactly. And in speaking about the origin story, I don't want to neglect the inspiration that I also received from our sister, Makisha Noel. At the time, she had what's called the Living Room Project. And so she would host dialogues and debates inside college dorms, inside their living room. And the idea of the Living Room Project was how we think and behave were imparted in us through the teachings of our family and parents and siblings inside the living room. And the Living Room Project was essentially a way to deconstruct those things that we learned and reconstruct it with what we know now. So now we have an accumulation of experiences and knowledge. And so it was such a fascinating and beautiful concept. And, like Maki did an incredible job putting together those dialogues and debates inside living rooms. Like she did it inside her living room, inside her friends' living rooms with people who the people who lived in that dorm were black. She did it with one of my friends who were white. Like there was just so many. It was so diverse in those living rooms. And so I'd like to just shout out Maki for what she did, because I know it was definitely an inspiration for me. And I know part of her inspiration was a conversation that we would have in our living rooms in Miami. I think there was a time when you moved back to Miami, and we would have conversations with friends inside the living room as well. And so I think all of it has really, all of our experiences really stacked on top of each other to create what we see today. And so I'm extremely grateful for everyone who came before me, the people who inspired me. Another person who inspired me is Rachel Allen, or Dr. Rachel Allen.
Okay.
She has what's called the Peace and Justice Institute, and she did something when I lived in Orlando called Orlando Speaks, and she would have people from the community members sit at tables with police officers, and we would have real authentic conversations. And I remember the last Orlando Speaks I went to, I sat down at a table with the police officer called Orlando. This is when I was living in Orlando.
His name was Orlando?
Yeah, his name was Orlando. We were living in Orlando.
Shout out to Orlando from Orlando.
And I don't remember exactly what was said in the conversation, but I just remember him pouring out his heart. And I was like, man, this is a real human I'm speaking to. This is just not somebody with a badge. I was about to say what Lil Durk said. I was like, this is just not a little bleep with a badge.
We'll take the first one. We'll take the first one.
You know,
Yeah.
but he was a human. Anyway, so I say that to say, like, if I were to take some time and reflect deeply on the origin of Barbershop Speaks, like, I got it from a lot of places, and of course from the old boy, from Dad. You know, I was raised in the shop. There was a shop in our backyard.
Yeah.
You know, he created a private barbershop, if you will, in our backyard. And so his friends would come over to get a cut. And I remember when we first got a personal computer, as Steve Jobs would call it, one of the first places the personal computer was, or at least the working one was in the office.
Right.
Like, we had one in the library, but it used to glitch a lot. But the one that worked the best was we call it the office, but it was a barbershop.
Right.
And so I remember I would have to go there if I wanted to use the computer. And so I would hear him talking with his friends inside the barbershop that was at our house. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, it honestly all comes together in just this beautiful way. Like, Dad, the example that he set for us of being an entrepreneur, of choosing the way that he wanted to live his life, of being a taxi driver, being in transportation and choosing his hours, of being a barber and like choosing his clients, of that freedom to be able to, you know, do something that sustains your life, but also like have the flexibility to, he used to read and study the Bible a lot. And so having that flexibility to do that when he wanted to, I think that's amazing. And I want to transition into talking more about Dad's legacy. And so I know that you and Mom, you guys went to Haiti this past week. And for some of the listeners who are listening, our dad passed last year. And so the church that he was involved with decided to create a computer lab in his honor and in his name at the orphanage in Haiti. So I'd love to hear you talk about just what your experience there and what is the mission? What are you trying to accomplish with the Ramses Noel Computer Lab?
Thank you for bringing that up. The Ramses Noel Computer Lab it's a place of opportunity. I want it to be a place of opportunity. I want it to be a breeding ground for people to grow and build their legacy. So let me backtrack a little. You did a really good job explaining what the fact that there is a computer lab. And so the orphanage is called the Shalom Village Orphanage, and it was created in 2010 after the earthquake that killed over 250,000 people. And so obviously that was extremely devastating, the earthquake was, for Haiti and just for people around the world to see the amount of suffering and loss that occurred in Haiti. And a lot of times when people see a very big problem, they see a very large mountain, and they're like, I want to climb this mountain, I want to solve this problem, but it's so big that I can't solve it. Mm-hmm. And so I won't climb the mountain. 250,000 people died. And this orphanage that was created is a beautiful symbol that although you can't help everybody, you could help somebody. And that help will make a huge difference. I guess it's just so powerful to me when I think about that, because it's not an orphanage that houses all the children who lost their parents during the earthquake. Like, if I'm not mistaken, like they up until recently, they had over 30 kids in the orphanage. So it's not like they had 30,000 kids in an orphanage, but you don't need 30,000 kids to have an orphanage and to make a difference. And these kids, the first time I met them was in 2016, and it was my first time going to Haiti, and it was with Dad. It was with all of us, Mom, Dad, you, Maki. I'm not sure if Anderson came. Did Anderson come with me?
I don't think so.
You probably stayed with Miss Dorian.
Shout out to Anderson, who's our younger brother.
Yes, a younger brother.
He's a troublemaker, but he's also the most popular Noel.
He is the most popular Noel.
Yeah.
And so, all of us went to Haiti, and it was my first time at the orphanage. And honestly, I didn't realize how powerful it was or what ground I was standing in when I went there the first time. But I remember I did some type of educational seminar / workshop with the kids. And that's around the time I first started public speaking, 2 years into it. And coming back now, I see a lot of the kids that I vaguely remember, but they're not kids anymore. They're still kids, but they're much, much older. And they still need a lot of help. The work that Pastor Fanfan is doing at the orphanage is God's work. It's incredibly powerful how the lives of those kids are just transformed because the weight of love that they get every single day. And it's so inspirational to me. And all these years that they were living at the orphanage, they never had a reliable source of Wi-Fi. Like, that's something that we take for granted. Like, we walk inside an establishment and we're like, y'all got Wi-Fi?
Like, that's the equivalent of having running water.
Yeah. Like, that's one of the first things we ask. And if they don't, we're confused. We're like, what do you mean you don't have Wi-Fi? Right? Like, it's just a given. Like, we have Wi-Fi, we're going to connect to the internet, we're going to type on our little fancy laptops, and we're going to keep it pushing. But that wasn't the case for them. I'm like, how did they live like that? But then also, because when I went to Haiti, I was living on the orphanage. There's just a lot of ways that their lives can be better if they received a lot more support. But to narrow the conversation to the Ramses Noel Computer Lab, prior to my trip to Haiti, I started to fundraise in order to see if I can get high-speed internet at the Ramses Noel Computer Lab effectively for the orphanage. And thank God there's generous people who contributed. People like Ted Lucas of Technology, also CEO of Slip and Slide Records. He's doing an amazing job with technology. He's doing an amazing job with educating young people about the power of technology and connecting them to resources. Not only he's doing that through the work that he's doing at Florida Memorial University, but also in the community through Tech Tuesdays. You know, also another person who contributed greatly is Lex Pierre, who is a co-founder of We Reach Foundation, also founder of Lex Promotions, that does marketing for Rick Ross. Like, that's amazing, right? And Lex is Haitian, and he contributed as well. And because of their major contributions, and also the contributions of people like Jeff Lozama and Marjorie Lozama, and so many others, we're able to afford to get high-speed internet for the Ramses Noel Computer Lab. And we also were able to get some computers from FMU. And right now, we're in a place where we have strong internet. We have a couple computers. We need better ones. I can't even cap, because of all of, there's a lot of kids and there's only so many good computers that we have. What we want to do is make the computer lab a place where these kids can, one, learn how to effectively use a computer, how to navigate the internet, but then also we want them to learn skills on the computer so they can eventually find work, not only here in Haiti, but they could also find work in different places around the world, and specifically in the US as well. So what I envision is the kids learning how to edit videos, learning how to create graphics, learning how to be an executive assistant, or learning e-commerce, learning Shopify, whatever the case is. And they have partners or employers here in the US by the Haitian diaspora, but then also anybody for that matter. Because they are intelligent, they're ambitious, they're hungry, they have everything that you and I have. They just don't have the resources. And if it's within my power, by God's grace and through the legacy of my dad, to bring them the resources in order for them to reach their potential, then that's what I'm going to do. That's part of my purpose. That's part of my mission right now, is to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that you said. And I think that technology mixed with education is just a great equalizer. Mm-hmm. And in order for those kids who have such bright futures ahead of them, in order for them to be able to pull themselves out of their situation, access is important.
Correct.
Access to technology, access to information. And I would probably give a lot of credit to YouTube and to the internet for the self-education that I've had, and I don't take that for granted at all. That my ability to access the world's information at the click of a button, or with your phone or on your laptop, I really feel has brought me to the place I am right now. And so it's very beautiful to think that there's a future where these kids who started from where they started, just the fact that you've introduced this ecosystem where they have access to this technology, they can pull themselves out of their situation, but then also pull their entire community and their families, and eventually, hopefully, the country into a new situation. So I think that you are doing the Lord's work, and I think it's very beautiful, and I think Dad would be very proud.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And just a last word on this, it brings me back to the idea of how dark the world is, and that by yourself you won't be able to light the entire world. but you could light up certain corners of the world, and you could light up the worlds of others. And if that's all that you do, then you did something extraordinary. And that's what the Ramses Noel Computer Lab is. It's a way to light up the lives of the kids in that orphanage, because they experience so much darkness and so much pain, that this outpouring of love, not through words, but through action and resources, it will completely transform their world.
Yeah. Okay. To wrap it up, one of the things that I pride myself on is being a student of history and a student of the greatest people in history, and understanding what they left behind, whether it's, their books or their ideas or the way that they see the world. And I know you and me were both all about legacy. So I want to wrap it up by asking you, in 100 years from now, when people are looking back and thinking about Jefferson Noel, the person, the idea, the concept of Jefferson Noel, what do you want your legacy to be?
I thought you were gonna ask me what is one sentence. What is one sentence you want them to say about me? I was formulating that sentence in my mind. I'll say the sentence, and then I'll have to think harder on the legacy part. The sentence I think I want people to say 100 years from now, when they're reflecting on my life, is he was helplessly ambitious in pursuing his purpose and helping others do the same. I think if someone say that, even if someone whisper it,
That'll be the loudest whisper ever.
Loudest whisper ever. Legacy. I do not think God put me on this earth to play small. And I don't know if I'll ever be as impactful as Nelson Mandela or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Barack Hussein Obama or any of those folks. I don't know if my impact will ever be as wide as them, but I know my impact for many people will be as deep as theirs.
We're going to let that sit and
Let it sit.
let it marinate. No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Is there anything else that I haven't brought up that you want to?
Well, I thought we were going to speak about why LeBron is better than Michael Jordan.
Let's talk about it.
So now we reached the important part of the conversation.
Now we can kick our feet off and like really kick our
Let me
shoes
let
off.
me make sure it's still recording.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. What happened? Called on here or there? That's fine.
All right, we're gonna end it by.
No, it won't. Just press re-record. You should be good. Go ahead.
I'm gonna end it by just having. This will be the final.
Final word?
The final word
Okay.
on the greatest basketball player of all time.
All right. If we're speaking about teams, regardless if we're speaking about team stats, whoever's a better team player or individual player, whatever, LeBron is still better. But let's speak about individual shortly. The goal in basketball is to get the ball in the basket. That's the goal, period. It's not about getting it in beautifully. It's not about how sexy it is. It's about getting the ball in the basket. LeBron James is better at Michael Jordan than in getting the ball in the basket. LeBron is a more efficient scorer than Michael Jordan. Not only at the three-point line, although he's a better three-point shooter than Jordan ever was. He also has a higher percentage at two. And so LeBron is better at Jordan in
At
getting
Jordan? Than Jordan?
better than Jordan
Than
in
Jordan,
getting the ball in the basket.
Okay.
And not only that, LeBron is also better than Jordan at helping others to get the ball in the basket.
Okay.
Right? And so I think LeBron is marginally better at Jordan in shooting. Like the percentage is not that far apart. I think it's like 1 to 2%, something like that. But if we're talking about assist, like it's a night and day. Jordan was a good passer. LeBron is an all-time passer.
Okay.
It's a huge difference. Like the gap is like Mike Miller was a good 3-point shooter, but Stephen Curry is the greatest 3-point shooter of all time.
All time.
That's how wide the gap is between.
that's a big gulf.
That's how wide the gap is between LeBron passing ability and Jordan's.
Okay, so let me play the contrarian. Let
Sure.
me play the Jordan side. So most people would say, "Oh, Jordan is the best because of the number of championships and the fact that he was able to go undefeated in the finals." Right?
No, I don't think he ever went.
Did he ever lose in the finals?
Oh yeah, I thought you meant like he went 4-0 in a final series. No,
No.
he never lost in the finals.
Right. So every time he went to the finals, he won. So that's the side that people would play for Jordan, saying, "Oh, he was the greatest of all time," because that's what it comes down to. So what would you argue on that?
I think that would be a great argument if Jordan had a 6-year career and he just played 6 years. He went to the finals and won. But Jordan had a 15-year career.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, people like to only say Jordan is the best because he's 6-0 in the finals, but they don't count the times. Like, what is his record in the first round? What is his record in the second round? What is his record in the third round in the conference finals? Right? He's clearly not undefeated there. Mm-hmm. And so to only measure Jordan as better is because he's 6-0. And by the way, it's not that he's 6-0. His team is 6-0. Mm-hmm. Jordan never did it without Pippen, right? LeBron has a championship without Wade. LeBron has a championship without Anthony Davis. LeBron has a championship without Kyrie Irving. LeBron has a championship without Kevin Love. LeBron has a championship with any team that he's ever been to. As a matter of fact, when LeBron was in the East, he had a monopoly on the finals. He went to the finals 8 years in a row from 2010 to 2018. To show how dominant that was for him is when he left the East and went to the West, no other team in the East has gone to the finals 2 years in a row. That shows how difficult it is to get to the final. So getting to the finals by itself is an incredible achievement. So people who think just because Jordan is 6-0 in the finals, that just shows that when he reached there, the deal got closed. But the fact that he didn't get there more, people should also look at that. On top of that, and I'll end this here, Jordan had a much better team than LeBron more times than LeBron. I could have said that better, but let me explain what I mean. After Jordan retired the first time, after they three-peated and he thought he was the GOAT after that. After 3 final appearances, he thought he was a GOAT and he left. The Bulls went to the playoffs the next year after he retired, and they had a winning record. I think they won like 52 games the next season after Jordan left. Mm-hmm. That showed how solid his team was even without him. Yep. Every time LeBron has left a team, those teams immediately went to the lottery. Right. Like immediately went to the top
race
lottery.
To the bottom.
Because LeBron was everything to that team. Before LeBron went back to the Cavaliers, Kyrie was on that team, and that team did nothing. And I love Kyrie, but they did nothing. When LeBron went to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they immediately went to the finals that same exact year. And so LeBron, even though he had good players and he had great players for a lot of the second half of his career, well, I don't even know where to start that measurement, but he is the reason those teams went to the finals. Mm-hmm. It's not because he had great players. It's because he's LeBron.
It was in spite of the players.
Not in spite, but it's because he is LeBron. That's why they went to the finals. It's not because he had all these phenomenal players.
Okay.
Like if you look at 2007, the team that he dragged to the finals, like
He just went to the public park and was like, "Yo, y'all want to go to the finals? All right, let's go."
Like he had Delonte West, Mo Williams, Jonas Ogaskis,
Bunch of scrubs.
I mean, So he dragged the team to the finals, and so
who would you say is the bigger LeBron stand between you and Shannon Sharp?
oh, it got to be Shannon.
It gotta be Shannon?
It got to be because LeBron knows Shannon's name. As a matter of fact, LeBron knows my name. I used to work for his wife at the Juice Spot, and he used to be
In Miami.
In Miami, he used to be like, "Yo, what's good, Jay?" And I'm like, "What's good, LeBron?" Right? So does he still remember my name? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he knew my name. But I think Shannon might take that cake.
Okay. Let's to really wrap this up, I want to end it with like manifesting something.
Yeah.
So I feel like up until this point, you've accomplished a lot. You've achieved a lot. What is there left for you to personally achieve? Like what do you want to accomplish, or who are some people that you'd want to meet and have a conversation with? Like I just want to put that into the universe, and hopefully it comes back to you.
Man, it really hurt me that I never met Kobe.
Okay.
Really hurt. I can't even lie. I met LeBron, so thank God for that. I hope to do business with him in the future. I would love to meet Obama, Serena Williams as well. Obviously Oprah, Issa Rae. And when I say meet them, I don't think just want to see them in passing. Like, I would love to have more than that. I could really, I would really love to meet those folks.
Okay.
Yeah, Anthony Robbins, Eric Thomas. We're gonna see him this Saturday, or Saturdays ago by the time this podcast launches. But yeah, those are some people I'd love to meet, have real conversations with.
Okay. All right. With that, this was a beautiful conversation. Love you, broski.
Love you too.
This is One on One with David and Jeff. Let's get it. Thank you.
Thank you.